Well, today is June 23rd. It's 5:40, and if you're at Nauset High School, so if you're intended to be at the Eastham Special Town Meeting, you are at the right place, and we welcome you. I just want everyone to know that you've got your clicker handy. We've got voting people that if anybody has an issue with this when we do the temp vote, we will certainly take you and get you all fixed up. So how's the volume in the back? Everybody good? Okay, great. That's a good? Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the non-voters in that section. So I know it continues. This is sort of a broken record, but I know the building renovations and the new parking lot issues are, so I appreciate everybody's getting here and your patience as we go through this. And there's always an abundance of caution for your safety, so I appreciate everybody. And I knew this was a new configuration today, so everybody getting here and getting seated on time was wonderful. Town Clerk Linda Sassy has advised me we do have a quorum. And as in the last town meeting, the quorum is determined by 5% of the registered voters. The quorum needed for tonight was 243, and we have eclipsed that. My name is Scott Carey, and I wanted to, again, thank you for electing me moderator of our town. I'm honored in the confidence you've placed in me in prior town meetings, and I'll do my best tonight to make sure everybody has a lively opportunity to debate the issues in front of us, participate as you see, and of course I do want to just remind everybody that to please be kind to your neighbor, and when people are speaking, we'll try to treat everyone with as much respect as we can. So this is a special town meeting, so we hopefully will be a pretty lively debate, and we will get there. There's just one article on the warrant. So, and again, sort of like a couple of people have asked me over the last few days, when you have a Proposition 2.5 override in a town in Massachusetts, you're required to have a 2/3 majority vote at town meeting and then a second vote at the ballot. And so that's the municipal law, and the town of Eastham is just following the municipal law. So some people had some questions about that. Okay. So I just wanted to welcome you on behalf of the Select Board and the Town Administrator. We've gone over what my agenda is to have a lively debate. Again, always encouraging people to give of your time. Search committee is always looking for people, and I know a lot of the work of this town is done by volunteers, so it's never a bad thing to appreciate that. You passed restrooms on your way in. If anyone needs those, we can send you in that right direction. If you do go, please take your clicker with you. There's so many things I could but I won't because, tonight we have a little bit different. Our police chief is not here because he has an event with his son at Step Up College Day. So we have lucky enough to have Officer Dan Barnum over there, and Dan's sort of a local legend around here. It's not because of him, but it's because of his sidekick Nova, the dog that helps him work through all of the with the kids here at the high school. So we welcome Dan, and I know Sergeant Josh Adams is here with a number of other officers, both police and fire. Dan, anything for tonight's meeting? Okay, Dan's all good. Our fire chief has asked me to remind you, if in the case of an emergency, there is an exit over here, and she will be manning that exit right there and get everybody out to safety. So, anything else, Chief? No? Okay. Oh, we have one on the back too, where there's exit on the back right. So, we'll direct you if things go south. So. Okay. One other additional note is that there is a joint survey being bantered about in town. It's by the Open Space Committee and Eastham Recreation Committee, And it's on Eastham Rec Facebook page, the Open Space Facebook page, and it's on the town website. You can take the survey through the end of June, which, believe it or not, is a week from tonight. So I encourage you to do that, get your ideas and thoughts on both the current programming and future programming, I believe is part of it. So everyone is just so well behaved. I'm just very happy to be here. Our first order of business is the return of the warrant, and the constable has attested that the warrant was posted as required, so the warrant has been properly served. Linda Sassy to my left is our town clerk. Do you have anything to add?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right, let's get started. Thought I would do a quick introduction. The select board, we have Amy Ekman. We have Jerry Saracel, the chair, Suzanne Bryan, Jamie Dimitri, and Bob Bruns. Finance Committee to my left, Mary Shaw and Peter Wade are co-chairs. Paul Brown is the clerk. Patty Anderson, Fred Guidi, who gave me a lesson on that earlier, so I wanted to make sure I got that. Hopefully I did all right. Kate Paradise, Ron Lanoy is not here. Roy Maroli is the vice chair, and Steve Kananchuk is here as well. Town Administrator Jackie Beebe, Assistant Town Administrator and Finance Director Rich Benevenu, and our Managing Partner of KP Law, Lauren Goldberg, is here to make sure we do everything legally and correct. It's a good time to always thank the town, the high school facilities manager, the town administrator, and all of her staff. All the work to get this set up. You can tell every one of these is a little different, trying to anticipate crowd size, the location, so on and so forth. So it's a lot of effort, and we certainly appreciate the work that's put on. As a reminder, any motion that being Just as a reminder, any motion that will be made will be put in writing, and it'll need to come through the town clerk, and she has forms. There are multiple mics located behind us, so those who, if you have a comment or you'll go to a mic and wait to be recognized. All questions should be made through the moderator, and if you are recognized, please give your name and address. So I wanted to give a quick review of the warrant that you received in the mail. Inside the front cover is the ballot for tomorrow, so right there, followed by the Article 1, which we'll be debating, followed by town meeting notes, just in case you had any questions about how this rules. And then there is a description of the project the select board has put together at the balance of the warrant. So basically what we're going to try to do, we have, generally speakers, we try to keep everybody to 2 to 3 minutes. I do my best, try not to cut everybody off, but that's basically just try to do your best to get to the point, and then we'll take it from there. And that necessarily doesn't apply to a presenter or select board or the town administrator. We tend to give them a little bit more leeway. And if a voter does call the question, it's up to the moderator to determine whether I feel we've had enough of a debate. What I would do is if somebody does call the question and I don't think we've reached that debate, I would ask them to stay at the microphone, so when I do feel like we've reached that debate limit, then I would recognize the person who has made the motion or made the suggestion to curtail discussion, and then we would go to a 2/3 vote to curtail discussion, and then we would take up the article depending on whether it passes or not. Okay. We are just rolling along tonight. We've talked about if you leave the room, electronic voting. All right, let's do a quick refresher. So I will give you the heads up when it's time to vote. You'll have 30 seconds to vote. Once you see the light, as I said, you'll have 30 seconds once you see the light, which is right here. And then the light will go off. If you vote and you want to change your vote, just vote a second time. What's that?
What's yes and no? One for yes.
Oh, always what? Yes, one for yes, two for no, okay? And then, so we'll do a practice vote. And the question for tonight's practice vote is, will it be hot tomorrow?
While people are voting, can we have a point of order that the inside front cover says that the vote tomorrow will be the 24th of May, and it should say June. So just...
Okay. Thank you for that, sir.
David Sutherland, 585 Locust Road.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so the votes are in. The vote has passed in the affirmative with 480 voting yes, it will be hot tomorrow, and 33 saying no, and so we hope they're right. All right. Okay. So without further ado, what I'll do is Article 1, I will read the title of the article, and then I will recognize a select board member to make the motion. That select board member has asked to come to the mic to speak, to read the motion. The motion will also be on the screen behind it. It'll give everybody a chance to look at it. It's slightly different than what you see, so just, the eyes on the screen will tell you everything you need to know. So Article 1 is to implement and construct Phase 1 of the Town of Eastham Targeted Watershed Management Plan.
Good evening. Bear with me, it's a long motion. I move that the town appropriate the sum of $170 million to implement and construct Phase 1 of the Town of Eastham Targeted Watershed Management Plan, consisting of construction of a municipal wastewater treatment facility, collection, conveyance, and effluent disposal systems, associated pumping stations, related equipment, design and engineering costs, and including any land acquisition costs and all other costs incidental and related thereto, collectively, the project. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow such sum under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7 and 8 of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, that the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such amount from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, the trust, established pursuant to Chapter 29C, and in connection therewith to enter into a financing agreement and/or security agreement with the trust, and otherwise to contract with the trust and the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, with respect to such loans, and that the Select Board is authorized to enter into a project regulatory agreement with the DEP. Furthermore, that the Select Board and/or Town Manager is authorized to apply for, accept, and expend any federal, state, county, or other funds that may be available for this purpose, and to enter into any intermunicipal or other agreements for acceptance of any such grants or funds, which shall be used to offset the total appropriation authorized herein. And that the Select Board is authorized, for purposes of the project, to acquire through all legal means, including donation, purchase, and eminent domain, and assign such other appropriate governmental entities and public utility companies the rights in land parcels constituting any portion of the land, premises, permanent or temporary easements, rights of way, and other rights in land in Eastham necessary for the construction of the project. and further, to execute instruments and other documents and take such other action as is needed to effectuate this vote. Provided, however, that this vote shall not take effect until the town votes to accept from the limitations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay the principal and interest on the borrowing approved by such vote.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Okay. So the town has put together a several-minute presentation, which you're going to be on the screen behind. So we'll do that. And then once we'll do that, and we'll get into the audience, and the Finance Committee has a statement they'd like to make.
Hi, I'm Amy Ekman, Eastham resident and member of the Eastham Select Board since 2008. For over a decade, our community has come together to protect something truly precious, our water. It's not just a resource, it's the very heart of our town, sustaining our families, our environment, our way of life, and our economy. Since 2005, when we conducted our clean water study, we've worked hard to understand, plan, and take meaningful action to keep our drinking water safe and preserve the health of our ponds and estuaries.
We're proposing a collection and treatment system to, number one, improve our groundwater quality, number two, remove nitrogen and nutrients from our freshwater ponds and our saltwater estuaries, and number three, to be in compliance with state regulation, federal regulation, and legal administrative consents.
This clean water study has guided us on this journey. And since, we have constructed a public water system while all along planning for future wastewater infrastructure in town.
Traditional sewers are an important piece of this puzzle. We've explored many different techniques over the past 20 years. We've investigated enhanced IA systems, layer cake systems, permeable reactive barriers, shellfish aquaculture, stormwater mitigations, and of course a collection and treatment system. And what we found is that we need a small collection and treatment system to appropriately mitigate our nutrient load into our estuary. As a reference, a standard Title V reduces nitrogen to 35 milligrams per liter. An innovative alternative system, also known as an IA system, removes nitrogen to 19 milligrams per liter. Some of the newer enhanced IA systems can reduce the nitrogen to 10 milligrams per liter, and a collection and treatment plant can actually reduce the nitrogen to 3 milligrams per liter. And that is the only way we can be in compliance with our TMDLs.
I understand that connecting less than 800 properties to a traditional sewer system may seem like a limited action to take, but it really is part of a larger regional collaboration that we have with the other towns. For instance, as we move to clean up Salt Pond, then Orleans has, a few years ahead of us, has already started to clean up Town Cove and the estuary, Nauset Marsh. So we're working on this together. 10, 15 years from now, we'll do another piece, they'll continue to do their piece, and all together we will get the most benefit for the cleanest water.
The town is doing phase one by attacking the area that in any scenario we know needs to be attenuated and managed to reduce nitrogen is actually the right and smart way for the project to proceed. Each individual action taken by the town, whether it's this wastewater management project, stormwater controls and other portions of the town, combined with things that are happening with the other towns with whom you share this watershed, are all going to add up piece on piece on piece to reduce nutrient loading to the point where we begin to see a reversal in the decline of water quality.
This plan is growth neutral, as required by the state, and we're building it to mitigate the damage done to our environment and for sustainable development that would already be allowed under current zoning bylaws and health regulations.
Common concern we're hearing is that a collection and treatment system will bring about an overdevelopment in town. As part of our SRF funding, we are bound to have a nitrogen growth neutral regulation or bylaw that applies to the town. What this means is that each lot is currently assigned a flow and a load. For the foreseeable future, all of the lots are bound by what they currently are allowed under Title V. This does not equal overdevelopment or an overgrowth.
Fawcett Marsh, where my grandchildren love to kayak, and my hope is that their grandchildren will love to kayak here too. But what we have to do is get rid of the nitrogen coming in here, and that's what our wastewater treatment plant will do. And it's really important to try and keep this safe. But you know, if we vote no, it's even worse, because we're going to have to start putting in innovative alternative septic systems, many of us, in our yards. Even if every home in Eastham did that, we would not pull out enough nitrogen to save Fawcett Marsh. We would still have to build the treatment plant right where it is in the future. Costs are higher, and we will lose zero interest loans from the state and guaranteed loans from the state.
Since 2013, our community has come together for wastewater through 13 different town meetings. And in 2023, thanks to your continued support, the town took an important step by funding just under $6 million the design of a new wastewater treatment system at the DPW, a critical part of protecting our water now and for future generations to come.
I assure you that the town, that'd be the administration along with those committees, spend countless hours analyzing the cost of these projects. And I am comfortable saying that the proposal that's in front of you now is the best we're going to see for the taxpayers of this town. If we learned anything from water, was that waiting wasn't an option. In fact, that delaying improving the water situation cost us about $125 million that we're still paying for now.
Over the past several years, the Finance Committee has been working with town administration. We've been carefully planning a town-wide wastewater system, and we've been focusing on how to get the lowest possible funding costs, as well as when is the best time to do this. And we believe that time is now.
Given that this project is a necessity and will ultimately be done, the time to do it is now. It's never cheaper than it's going to be right now. The financing that's available to the town, the choices the town has made on how to fairly allocate that cost across the full range of the tax base is to the greatest possible advantage to the most number of people paying into the tax base in the town of Eastham. Future funding is going to become more scarce and more competitive. The town of Eastham's project came in the top 20 of all projects across the Commonwealth. There's no assurance that if the town passes on the money this year, that the same level of attractive financing with the level of principal forgiveness that this project currently has is going to be available in the future.
Still, even with the incentives that the state is giving us, it's expensive, and we know it's expensive. But we are absolutely committed to helping residents pay for this. That's why we're doing the community-wide solution. That is why after we go out to bid, we will have some other options perhaps to offer residents who can't afford to pay. But it's important to note that our state representatives and senator have made great strides to try and get us extra incentives for this project. And one of them is an $18,000 tax credit. So you will be able to get 60% of the hookup costs paid for by tax rebates. The other 40% is what we need to help you worry about. And that's where the Aqua Fund comes in with 0% interest, our community fund and our sewer and water hookup fund. And we have a good track record from water. Okay, when you voted to approve water, you did not vote to approve free hookups for everyone in the mandatory area. But after we went out to bid and we noticed the contract prices were coming in okay, the select board made that policy decision to connect all the residents that were in the mandatory area for free. We can't promise you that on this one, But we will do everything possible to help you manage those costs.
It's about protecting our environment, our groundwater, our ponds and beaches, the natural beauty around us, and the future of Eastham and Cape Cod. As a member of the Finance Committee, I can assure you this is financially sound. As a resident of Eastham, I believe it is absolutely necessary.
This vote isn't just about pipes and infrastructure. It's about safeguarding the community we all love. It's about trust, responsibility, and coming together to make the best choice for Eastham's future.
If we as a town choose to do nothing, we're going to continue to see further degradation of our estuaries and our freshwater bodies. We're going to continue to see elongated and increased beach closures, shellfish closures. We're going to see more algae growth, more harmful algal blooms, more cyanobacteria. We're going to have more bacteria in our water bodies, which will prevent us from being able to use them as we do today.
So really the choice is, we're either in it together and we move forward together as a town, or we're in it as individuals. And then inevitably in the future, we will still have to do a treatment plant. Why now? Because if you vote yes this evening, then 5 years from now, we'll start to connect people to this new system. 5 years. After that, it'll start to remove nitrogen from our water bodies. So we are not going to see improvement for years. So to kick the can down the road just prolongs all of that.
Thank you for being part of this journey and for listening, for being involved.
No matter how you vote this evening, thank you so much for coming. It's such an important thing to show up for. This is a large infrastructure project. This is a large decision for our community. It's critically important, and we really thank you for showing up.
Okay. Mary Shaw from the Finance Committee is going to have a brief comment or two.
Good evening. I wish to read the following.
Mary.
Yeah, is it on now? Yeah. Good evening. I wish to read the following statement on behalf of the Finance Committee. The need for wastewater infrastructure, the potential funding mechanisms, and the financial impacts have been considered by the Finance Committee for years, and we acknowledge that there will be a significant cost for all of us. We are invested in keeping this cost as low as possible. As a Finance Committee, we have been stewarding our short-term rental receipts to ensure they are available to pay for these costs. We have created a wastewater stabilization fund with several $1 million to help implement the wastewater program. We have been working with town staff to plan a capital improvement plan to ensure the timing of the wastewater debt is scheduled as the water debt is being retired. The time to move forward is now. We have a guarantee of participation in the state SRF for 100% of our project, which expires as of June 30th. The SRF guarantees 0% financing, and subsidies that come along with it will not be available after June 30th. We can take advantage of 0% or low-interest loans, saving us millions. We can avail ourselves of a 25% subsidy with the likely possibility of more that is on the table now to minimize the property tax increase. Not taking advantage of these circumstances, which have taken a huge amount of effort by many people to deliver and make available to us, will cost us each thousands more in property taxes in an inevitable future project. In 2007, the town had the opportunity to implement a town-wide water system at a cost of $76 million, with 0% financing. But in our short-sightedness, the project did not pass. It took 8 years to get the town-wide water system passed with an eventual cost of $131 million, an increase in the cost of the project of $55 million. In addition, the town lost the opportunity for 0% financing, adding an additional $70 million of interest costs to our budget over the life of the project. As a result of that poor decision, the town budget for debt service is millions of dollars higher than it should be, resulting in about $700 of unnecessary extra property tax paid by the average valued property owner every year, on average, which would have covered the cost of every property tax override passed in the last 10 years. The impact of not moving forward with the wastewater project would be a far worse decision. Not only will we lose guaranteed participation in the SRF program, but we also lose zero and low-interest loan opportunities and a guaranteed 25% subsidy. The impact on property taxes by losing these guarantees is far more substantial than the water project delays. The Finance Committee also supports the community-wide approach in funding the wastewater plans due to the substantial community-wide benefits associated with the project. We all benefit from clean, safe drinking water coming from our sole source aquifer. We all benefit from having a healthy natural environment that attracts us and our guests to town. A centralized system treats our wastewater to such a low level that the relatively small connection area alleviates others from also needing to connect. Moving forward, our management plan with centralized treatment alleviates the need for most others to install and maintain expensive IA systems throughout the period of our permit, up to 30 years. The Finance Committee strongly believes in maintaining a long-term perspective on the needs of the town and its financial management. We have and currently are paying the price for past short-sighted decisions. We unanimously recommend that the community support Article 1. Not to do so would be financially irresponsible and unwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So at this time, I'd like to invite anyone to go to a microphone and let's hear what the people have to say.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. My name is Mary Nee, and I live at 21 Aldea Way. I want to voice my support for the wastewater project as proposed, and I also want to commend Jackie and the entire team for a very clear and detailed information materials, along with what I believe has been a very thorough planning process. I was thinking about the proposal before us, and I found myself having a bit of public policy déjà vu. From 1984 to 1994, I was one of 3 Boston Water and Sewer Commissioners. My comments are not about my service, but what happened in Boston during this time. After the Clean Water Act was passed in the early 70s, Massachusetts was sued because of the pollution in Boston Harbor and the rivers and streams that flowed through it. The remedy that was mandated was secondary sewage treatment. This project was initially estimated to be $2 billion. The state argued in court that this was too expensive of a remedy for ratepayers to absorb, and they sought lesser interventions, although these alternatives would not clean up the harbor. The case went on for years with costly litigation before the court ordered secondary sewer treatment. By the time the court order came down in the 80s, the cost of the secondary sewer treatment rose to $4 billion. Moreover, all of the federal funds that had been originally appropriated for wastewater were expended, and a new president, Ronald Reagan, had been elected, and he was cutting the federal budget and environmental programs. In the end, the $4 billion project was carried almost exclusively by the ratepayers of Boston and 42 surrounding communities. We are not facing a $4 billion project, but I shared this history because what was made clear in the court case was that arguing that the remedy was too expensive was not a viable legal defense. And by the time the secondary sewer treatment plant was built, the cost to the ratepayers in Metro Boston is double what Eastham is considering now. I had a $1,700 annual bill for wastewater in 1994. So this brings me back to Eastham. As the town has represented, and I concur, a centralized wastewater system is not an if it will happen, but when it will happen. In light of the window closing for the revolving loan fund and other subsidies, the reality is if we defer this project, it will ultimately be ordered and will be way more expensive. And we would be putting the town in a position where the entire cost could be borne by the ratepayers. I believe it's in the town's best interest to approve this project and lock in the funding now. This brings me to another point, though, that the town has made. You have before you a carefully calibrated phased plan to address the most impacted watersheds first, thereby demonstrating to the state progress towards effectively remediating the most sensitive areas. And by doing so, this phased approach will defer the requirement for IA system mandates townwide. As was the case in Boston.
Mary, you've been well over 3 minutes, so if you could wrap it up.
Okay.
We get somebody else.
All right. One of the things that when you lose control and you get a court order, you lose all local control. There is absolutely no local control. So as a water and sewer commissioner, I was raising rates 500% without any local control. That's what happens. We cannot assume that if we kick this down the can, we'll just come back to this plan. It will not be there. So again, I strongly encourage my fellow residents to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. We'll go to the gentleman in the green at this mic.
Craig Torrey, 575 Old Orchard Road. I would ask for clarification about the coloration, the 3 grades of colors on the map in the handout, in the warrant. Of the whole Phase 1, only the dark green color is labeled as required. That contrasts with the lookup map on the website that says every property in the whole Phase 1 is mandatory to be hooked up. I would just like to ask Jackie, perhaps, if you could address that.
Thank you. Hold on one second. Are we going to? We're going to put a map up, and then we're going to clarify exactly what you want, and then Jackie will address your questions.
Okay. The shades don't show so well there, but okay. Only the outer blue.
Kayla, can you
drawing.
show the 3-color map for Mr. Torrey? Sorry, we're doing everything for the sound. There we go.
Okay, the warrant, that's the map in the warrant. Only the dark green is labeled as required. However, all of Phase 1 is mandatory according to the website lookup page. There are a lot of, I would guess that there are a couple of hundred properties outside the dark green required labeled there that are potential voters thinking that they are not required to hook up. And I would ask for your clarification on that.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we get your specific question. So your specific question is on the lighter green outside the darker green, and what is their correlation with them having to hook up?
Right.
Is that your question?
Yeah. Are the light green, dark green, light green and tan required to hook up, although it's not so labeled on the warrant?
Great, that's a great question. Jackie Beebe.
Thank you. So on the map in the warrant, all three colors, green, light green, and yellow, together make up Phase 1, and together are 788 parcels. Those are the parcels that we will connect in Phase 1, all three colors. We used the colors for our own purposes, and that's why if we have a map that's all green now, and if you go on the website and you put in your address, it will tell you whether you are in or out of Phase 1. The green areas, Mr. Torrey is correct. The green colors are the essential hookups needed to do the mandatory, the absolute minimum cleanup we can do with DEP that's accepted in our plan. Why do we need the yellow areas? For two reasons. One, to get an engineering flow, the level of flow that we need to operate the plant successfully. We need to pick up the big users along Route 6, such as the Sheraton, Willie's Gym, people that use a lot of water and will use a lot of sewer. The second issue would be financial. So to get those larger users, it will help us pay for our operations costs and make the system self-sustaining sooner. So that's basically, all the colors are Phase 1. All the colors are in the required hookup sewer area.
Thank you, Jackie.
I would just like to add, in closing.
So clarification.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm sure there are people in those couple of hundred outside the dark green properties that will have read the warrant and say, I'm in the clear, I don't have to pay up to $16,000 for a hookup, and might have voted accordingly to their then thoughts rather than the understanding that you're giving us now. I mean, I think people might say, I have a buy, I don't have to attend this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Karen.
Karen Strauss, 15 Great Pond Road. I'm the chair of the Eastham Conservation Commission, where I've served for 8 years. Tonight I'm speaking as a resident, but my experience on the commission informs my understanding of Eastham's wetlands, waterways, and environmental challenges. We've talked a lot about the cost of this wastewater project, and yes, money matters, but this is never going to get cheaper. Right now, we have the financing lined up, and we have a solid plan, one that town staff, consultants, scientists have spent years developing. It's grounded in data and required by the state. Jackie, Rich, Jane Crowley, Hillary Greenberg Lemos, and others have done an outstanding job getting us here. The nutrient problem in our waterways won't solve itself. In fact, the longer we wait, the worse it gets, and the longer recovery takes. Even after we install sewers, it will take years, possibly decades, for the nutrients already in the soil and groundwater to fully flush out. But recovery only begins after we act. This project is critical to protecting our drinking water, our shellfish and fishing economy, our marshes and wetlands that buffer storm impacts, and the future health of Nauset Estuary, Salt Pond, Town Cove, and other local waters. These ecosystems are already under stress. Too many nutrients make marshes less resilient. They weaken flood protection. They worsen sea level rise impacts. They've led to shellfish closures and bacterial blooms. If we do nothing, we won't get to keep the status quo. We will get the slow motion collapse of these systems. That's not sustainable. Is this plan perfect? No. We can't afford to sewer the whole town right now, and we can't delay the areas of highest need while we try to design a perfect solution. This project responds to urgent needs, a consent decree, and new state regulations. Yes, we'll still need to look at Boat Meadow, Cape Cod Bay, and our ponds in the future. The town is working on other projects to help reduce stormwater runoff and nutrient flow, but those efforts alone won't fix the core problem. Wastewater treatment is the foundation we need to make real progress. Please vote yes on wastewater. Let's protect the water, the resources, and the future of Eastham. Thank you.
Hi, my name's James Badera. I live on 14 LD away. And I was a chairman of the planning board many years ago, but I had the privilege to begin the process of the water that we are receiving today. At that time, it was all facts. And my biggest question right now is, we've heard the emotional end, we have heard the financial end, but we don't have any facts. I haven't heard any facts on how the plant will be run, where the wastewater will be, how it will be treated, where it will be treated. We all know that the town land where the possible treatment plant is going in is adjacent to the fresh water or the water resource recharge area for the wells. In these years that I was on the planning board, we were identifying the flow. And the flow is from the highest point of the lens, where the dump is now, flows primarily toward the east. The east is where we get our water from. So my question is, how many gallons of this water, wastewater, will be put into that area? And what guarantee can you give me tonight that it'll never be polluted? Because we know that water is going toward the wells. Thank you.
Thank you. So just for clarification, Mr. Badera, did you have the question of the operations? Was that?
Yes, that would be the whole thing, is how this plant is going to work,
Okay.
how many gallons, the whole treatment process, where's the water going to go into, knowing that the flow is toward our wells, the town well,
Okay.
that you can't deny that what guarantee anybody on that board or collectively, all of you, can guarantee that our water will be safe even though this plant goes in?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to give Jackie the first shot. It's a three-part question.
I know, and I might forget, but I'm going to start with why we chose the site. And I'm going to ask for backup from the consultants or from Hillary if I get lost in this question. But basically, in 2022, we did extensive looks at several parcels to determine how close they would be to the well, how far away. We did hydrogeological studies that showed and that's actually in the warrant, the length of time it would take for the treated water, which is less than 3 MDL, so clean water, to travel to the wells. And the DPW site, not the landfill, but the DPW site was chosen as the one site that would not reach 2 of our 3 wells and would take the longest period of time to reach the 3rd well. Again, these plans, the TMDLs, all of the technical data is in the TWMP, which is online, and it's been online for this whole period of time. So we can go into that specifically, but there is data and there is research, about 16 years of it, behind this plan. And this plan has been accepted by the Department of Environmental Protection because we have proven through testing for many years that this treatment will be effective, and the water that is recharged back into the ground will be clean water, not polluted water. So right now, there's 800 systems that are sewering, basically, in their backyards, that we are going to remove those systems and treat that wastewater and release it back into the environment as clean water. So I'll let the consultants, if anyone wants to add anything to that, but I think that covers why that site.
Do you want to touch on the management?
Oh, I'm sorry. So we can go into the technology. We're using SBRs, an SBR technology. There will be 2 buildings. The tanks are located in the buildings. Effluent or the influent, the septic will come in under the ground in pipes and go into closed tanks. It goes through a couple of levels of treatment. It goes into the SBR tanks where chemicals are added, and it's aerated so that the solids separate out. The solids, sludge, are removed in containers once a week. I forgot the grit removal. And then after it goes through that treatment, it goes through ultraviolet treatment to remove bacteria, several more testing levels, and then it goes into the sand beds. So the sand beds basically act like big perk tests. They're going to release through pipes in the ground into the sand beds, and the clean water will then perk down into the soil. That's basically the technology.
Okay.
It is enclosed. I know the residents have been very, very concerned about smells and noises, but we have added noise attenuating sound barriers to the rooms. Every tank is going to be covered. It is as far away from any home as it can be located at this point, about a football field and a half away from Old Orchard. And we'll do everything possible to make it as pleasant as possible. The buildings are going to look like buildings, and the technology is absolutely state-of-the-art. That's why we're paying so much money for it. And several of us have gone on tours of the Orleans plant, which has a similar technology, and it's really a good plant. It doesn't smell, there's not a lot of noise. The only noise is from blowers that are blowing air into those tanks. So I urge you to, it is a little late, I understand, but there's so much information on the website and so much data, and so I encourage you to take a look at it.
Just as a follow-up, how many gallons of water will be returned through this system into the ground?
Well, that depends on how much comes in, but I will turn that over to our consultant for.
Good evening. My name is Ziad Kiari. I'm a consultant with Apex Companies. The flow for phase one is approximately 143,000 gallons per day. That's an average daily flow. Of course, in a community like Eastham, you have summer demand, and then, of course, the winter flows, but average is 143,000. We all know wastewater has about 2 to 5% solids. The rest of it is just water that ultimately will be going into the ground after it's been treated. And to answer the first question, I know Jackie touched on a lot of it, but there will be a down gradient wells that DEP is making the town put in for testing purposes to look at the water quality before it goes into the ground.
Okay, that's it. Thanks for the facts.
Thank you.
Hi, Carl Hartman, 1020 Samoset Road. I think you guys did a great job putting this all together. I have one basic question. As I understand it, we have an alternative here of a community solution which will serve a specific area of the town, and then the rest of us, we don't have to go and improve our current septic systems. If we don't move forward with this at this point, the likelihood is within the next several years, we will be required to put in improved systems for our own septic systems at a substantially higher cost potentially. My question, first of all, am I correct? I heard a yes, thanks. My question is, what assurance have we gotten from the state and the agencies that in the next 5 years or 10 years, they're going to come back and say, oh, it's great that you have a community solution, but now the rest of the town has to go ahead and put in the improved septic systems anyhow?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and we've certainly been asked that before. I would hesitate to make commitments on what the state is going to make us do or not do, but they have assured us that if we move forward with the plan, that we have a 20-year period where they are going to let us do what we're proposing and see if it works, right? There will still be people that will have to hook up to IA systems if their Title V fails, if they're on very tiny lots, if they are in wetland areas. So it doesn't make, it's not 100% that none of you will have to do IA systems, but it will, I think the vast majority won't. I don't know if Hillary, if you want to answer any more of that.
I can add just a few bits here. The Board of Health currently has regulations which require IA installations, and that is when you are abutting a wetland or in the buffer zone to any wetland resource area or the flood zone. We have mapping online where you can take a look at your property and see where you are. If your lot is under 20,000 square feet and you're abutted by 3 other lots under 20,000 square feet, and if there's a variance to your well, also if you want to increase the number of bedrooms, you would use an IA system beyond the 10,000 square foot per bedroom.
Thank you. Next up, this young lady.
Hi, Lisa Panascione from 20 Massasoit Road. I have 4 questions, so I'll ask one and then we'll defer, and then I can maybe come back.
Hold on, Lisa, one second. Can you adjust Lisa's mic so we can hear her a little bit clearer?
My deep voice, you mean? Thanks. I'm speechless. I read something about Wellfleet being involved in this down the road. Does somebody want to speak about that? Actually, I'm going to throw another question out, too. I think it was Mary Shaw who talked about the water project and then going into the wastewater. Can you explain what you talked about? I just mentioned briefly about how one kind of ends and the other one's going to start. Did you say something like that?
All right. Okay, so the question, I know we have the first question, so I'm making a note of that so we get you an answer to that. The second question, I'm not completely sure what you're asking.
Sure. I thought I heard Mary Shaw say from the Finance Committee that the water project that we passed and implemented and people are using, the financial part of that is being run down perhaps, meaning paid off, and now we're going to be going into the wastewater one. Is that correct? Could she explain it a little more?
Okay, we'll have Rich get that question. All right. You said you originally had 4 questions, so
Yeah.
that's 2.
While I was looking at your pretty little yellow and green map up there, I realized that I'm probably on the edge of the yellow. I just spent $30,000 for an IA system. Thank you, Hillary. And because I have 3 units and my grandbabies live in our property now, so I'm excited about that. I had to bring her up. I can't help it, sorry. But I'm right in the beginning of Massasoit. Am I going to be mandated to do the septic system? Because I just put an AI in.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, got that.
Okay,
Those are good.
and number 4.
Let's see. 1, 2.
Do finance first.
I only find 3, so if I find the other one, I'll bring it up.
All right, come on back if you think of number 4.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
we'll start with Jackie on Wellfleet.
Okay. So we share watersheds with Wellfleet in Orleans. Most of them we share with Orleans. So we've been predominantly working with them on how to manage both or several of our Nauset Marsh, Boat Meadow, Rock Harbor, Salt Pond. What am I missing? Sunken Meadow, South Sunken Meadow, and what's the other, there's another one. Down Cove, Nauset Marsh, yeah. Okay, so we've been working with both the towns. Wellfleet has just established regulations. Their plan was a different plan than ours that was suggested, and the DEP did accept the plan, but they have to move quickly because they have chosen to do the IA upgrades. So there will be some Eastham residents that are in that zone, because if you're in North Eastham up in the Wellfleet watershed area, you may come under their regulations, and we're going to have to help you sort that out. The work with Orleans is very important because we're hoping that we may be able to have some other alternatives for Phase 2 if we can work with Orleans and they determine what their capacity is after they do Phase 11 or something. In their system, we should have some more information, but we are in a watershed agreement with them. We are working with them. So the three towns are connected in certain ways, but a very small percent, I want to say it's 10% or 16%, somewhere between 10 and 15% of our nitrogen is in the Wellfleet Harbor watershed. And I'll go to IA system. Can I do the IA system?
No, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
So the second question was a finance question, so we have Rich here. I didn't exactly get what the question was, but I'll give Rich a shot to see
I think what Lisa was referring to is what we call debt drop-off. So we've been going through the water project for going on 15 years, and by the time the debt for wastewater comes on board and we're required to start making payments, some of the water debt will be finished paying and will be dropping off. So we'll be exchanging that debt for the new debt and trying to line it up so that we're not taking on multiple debt service. It's like having a mortgage and a second mortgage. You try to minimize that as much as you can. So we're just lining up as debt drops off, we bring on new debt so you don't have spikes in your tax rate.
Okay, thank you. And then the third question, I'm guessing Jackie can give this a shot.
I can give it a shot and Hillary can finish, but we just discussed this today. So if you are, especially if you're on the fringes of Phase 1, but if you're in Phase 1 and you have a functioning IA system, then what we need to do is work with the Board of Health to get you some more time. So you would not be in the first mandated round of hookups. You would definitely be able to have your system last for a little longer. And I don't know what the total length of time would be, but Hillary might throw that out for you.
I would add also that we will need regulations for the sewer, and so once we have the regulation, we'll come up with a definitive answer to that question. We don't have that definitive answer yet, but a reasonable amount of time would be between the 10 and 20-year mark.
Thank you. I think Jackie wants to clarify one more thing on the IA. I think that Lisa's question is if you've recently done an IA system and spent a lot of money on it, what happens now? I think that's the question. Yeah. Jackie will give it.
So all of those people will need to check in with Hillary because I don't want to promise you anything, but basically there will be a period of time if your IA is working successfully that you can keep it and we will, obviously allow you to keep it. I also want to make it clear that if you have to put in an IA system, you are still eligible for the Massachusetts tax credits over a period of 4 years, and you actually can still borrow money from the Aqua Fund, the county Aqua Fund, to do that as well. But the interest rate is a little higher. I think it's 4% and 6%.
Okay. I'm going to go this gentleman, and then we'll follow up with you.
Okay. I'm Dan Koppelman from Eldridge Drive. Tonight I'm here as a resident. I'm not representing any of the town departments or town boards that I sit as a member of. As a background, I have over 40 years experience in designing and operating wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants. My first 4 questions are directed to the design team. The first one is...
Dan, just hold on. First 4 questions?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just trying
First 4.
Trying to help everybody out. So if you
Okay.
could speak a little louder.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I wanted to know, because I went through the documentation and I didn't find it, has a mound analysis system been performed on the effluent discharge beds as proposed?
Okay. We'll do them. Let's get the questions
Okay.
and then we'll get the answers.
Okay. Number 2. It is a well-known fact, okay. It is a well-known fact that there's a myriad of chemicals present in the wastewater. The proposed system is designed to take out several of the known problematic ones. What is the rationale of discharging non-identified elements into or near the aquifer protection zone?
Okay.
Number 3, has the engineer come up with a life expectancy of the internal components of the wastewater treatment plant, and has a slush fund been established in order to replace those elements over the next 20 years?
Okay.
And number 4, it should be noted that the cost of removal of contaminants in an aquifer, and this is based on my experience, is significant. And I, as a member of the boards in this town and elsewhere, have fought very hard to protect the aquifer. In fact, I came up with regulations that are now implemented in the town of Eastham for the protection of the aquifer. So I'm very concerned that no matter what, the aquifer is protected. Those are the questions for the consultant.
Thank you. All right, so just on number 4, I just want to make sure I have this right one. So number 4 was the cost of, and then you used a word, and I missed that.
Okay. If the aquifer ends up getting chemicals from the wastewater stream, the cost of removal of those chemicals will be extremely significant. And I don't know if they've looked into that.
Okay, so you want to
because they were only looking at phosphorus removal, and they're looking at the mandated contaminants. The wastewater itself contains a significant amount of chemicals, metals, all kinds of materials that this treatment plant is not necessarily designed to take out.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to start with the first question, which was a mound analysis. Can the consultant speak to that?
Just to clarify a little bit, we are the owner's project manager on behalf of the town. GHD is the design engineer. They're not present today. However, mounding analysis is required by Mass DEP, and one was performed for this project.
Could you tell me where it is? I didn't find it in the online material.
It's part of the hydrogeo study that the consultant has performed on the job.
Okay.
It was not included in the TWMP. It's a separate document.
Then I will look for it. Thank you.
Okay. Second question had to do with chemicals and wastewater and the chemicals that are used and where they go.
So the primary treatment here for this wastewater system is obviously phosphorus and nitrogen. They're adding polyaluminum chloride as a coagulant to be able to separate, to take out the solids from the wastewater stream. And then ultimately, whatever goes in the ground gets tested and gets screened at the down gradient wells. The regulation is always changing, like you mentioned. If PFAS eventually becomes an issue, the town may have to do a PFAS treatment, whether it's on the water source or on the discharge from the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant. But for the time being, those are the chemicals that exist in water, and then the town would have to follow the regulations as they come up.
Okay. Question number 3.
I'm going to do the aquifer question first, and then turn it over to Rich for wastewater stabilization. Is that okay?
Well, we'll have his third question.
Okay, we'll do the third
All right.
question first, but this is all technical.
Okay. Well, we're going to do the third question first. The third question was the life expectancy of the internal combustion of the plant.
Components.
So part of the SRF requirement, the design engineer has to sign off and not guarantee, but the life expectancy for the plant, beneficial use would be 30 years or more. And this is what this plant will be designed for. In terms of the slush fund, that comes with operations. You have equipment, you have pumps, you have blowers, motors that eventually would break down, and that's part of the operational budget for operation and maintenance of the plant.
We have a pretty comprehensive capital improvement plan for the town as it is, and if this were to pass as part of the determination of a rate-setting process, combined with a tax levy contribution, which is part of the overall amount that we factored into potential costs, would be developed for that 20, we tend to do a 10-year plan, but we'd base it over the next 20 years based on the engineer design estimates that are submitted to DEP. And I'd also just want to add on the other question related to treatment of chemicals. I think it's perfectly a good question. One of the benefits of a centralized treatment plant is that if in the future we need to do PFAS removal or some other chemical or contaminant of emerging concern, we can make an upgrade to our centralized treatment plant. And when you have thousands of IA systems throughout town, you can't upgrade all those efficiently to handle new things that come down the pipe later on.
So the fourth question, and I'm not sure if you felt like that was answered with that, but your fourth question was the cost of chemicals that are not considered to be monitored that it go back in. Did I get that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
I think the fourth, I heard the fourth question is protecting the aquifer. How are we protecting the aquifer?
Right.
Okay. So basically, right now, I want to reassure people that our 3 public water supply wells all have sentry wells around them. We are testing them all the time to make sure that contaminants are not getting towards the well. The reason I went to Wellfleet and testified in front of the Board of Health when they were talking about the cesspools at Maurice's campground was because I was very concerned that that could affect one of our wells. So we are determined to keep those wells pristine, and we do as much testing as we can to do that, and we're required to do. And I think Rich answered the question better. I mean, right now, we're doing no testing. We are putting our waste into our backyards, and it gets no treatment, and it sits there, and then it goes into the environment. So if we flush prescription drugs down our toilet or chemicals of any kind, they are going to go directly into the ground. So a centralized treatment system is a far better system to be able to look for those contaminants and protect against those contaminants.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, then I can get into I have a couple of financial
All right,
questions.
why don't you circle back and let's go. Yeah, I mean, we need to, you know,
fine.
we're going
I
to go to
don't
this
mind
young
waiting.
lady, and then you
Sure.
can jump back in line.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nancy Benben. I'm at 585 Locust Road. And I understand the value and I understand the concept that this is indeed a community-wide issue that requires a community-wide solution. But this is a tough one. This is a tough one. This is expensive. And there are a lot of still unanswered questions in my mind. However, I'm here to listen, but I do have some very specific and I'm hope simple questions. Okay. The first one is, the treatment plant now, does it have the capacity to take care of every single homeowner and person or home that wants to take part in it? If every single homeowner wanted to be part of this sewer system, is the capacity there for all of us who will be paying for this take part in it?
No.
Okay.
And so then my follow-up, so then I'll have 3.5 questions. My follow-up is, what's the plan if we all want to be part of it?
I think the plan is, right now, we have phase 1 and phase 2. We have some time to look at phase 2. I know that all of us are hopeful that the state will be able to get those IA systems that can get down to 10 and make that a regular thing. So we're hoping that technology does help us out. We are hoping that we can partner with our sister town Orleans and maybe use some of their capacity. But we know that we have the capacity at this treatment plant to do phase 1 and phase 2, and that is 20 years into the future. So we're really planning for the next 20 years right now.
So it could be that those of us who can't take part in the system now because we're not part of phase 1 or phase 2 might indeed have to put in one of the more expensive A1 systems.
We cannot promise you that that won't happen, but I can promise you that you'll have to do it faster if we don't have a treatment plant.
Fair enough. Second question is, if I read the information right, each of us will have an increase of about $1,000 to our property taxes this year. Is that around correct?
It's a very high estimate of what we expect. We think we can actually do quite a bit better, but we didn't want to be overly optimistic and didn't want to oversell the plan. So we did estimate capital costs, debt service, and operating costs if there were no user charges. So again, very conservative on the outside, up to $1,000 for the average priced house.
And when would that go into effect, assuming this passes?
It will be ramped up over several years. Of course, we're not borrowing all the money all up front. It's borrowed over several years of the construction, and it gets phased in over time. And the operating costs don't take place until the plant's operational. And we have a wastewater stabilization fund to smooth those edges out over time. So this would probably be ramped up over the next 5 to 7 years.
So our first increase in taxes would be about how much and when?
I don't know. I'm optimistic that it's not even going to cost $1,000. So yeah,
Okay, so we don't really know that yet. Okay, I get it. The last question is, could you remind me how much our property taxes have increased over the last 6 years?
How many years?
How much has our property taxes on average increased over the last 5 years? Let's just say round number.
I don't have the last 5 years. I do know, since we were asked a question, over the last 10 years, property taxes have gone up about 90%. And there's lots of reasons for that. The biggest ones being a new high school, a new Cape Cod Tech school, the water project, and I think I'm missing one other, and a couple of operational overrides. And we compared that when we backed out those projects to inflation rate, that our costs of our operation of our town, excluding those big capital projects, were up about 8 to 9% higher than inflation, so not too bad, comparatively speaking.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to go, Dan, I'm going to go to the gentleman behind you first. And so I'll give everybody a chance to go first. Then I'm going to go to the gentleman in the plaid. So,
That's fine.
Yep. Don't go away.
Eric Radke, 415 Meeting House. Just a couple of quick clarifications. This treatment plant won't be in effect for 5 years, correct?
If we get approval tonight, we would most likely start construction in the fall of 2026, and it will take 3 years to build. So that brings us to the winter of 2029, so I would say 2030.
Okay, and long range, it'll take 20 years for everybody to be in phase 2, correct?
No, for everyone to be in phase 2.
For complete?
Yes, 20 years is the length of this plan right now.
And the treatment plant is good for 30 years before it's decrepit and obsolete?
No, the treatment plant is good for 35 years until we might have to replace some tanks, some parts, some elements.
So elements like big expensive things, not just pumps and motors and blowers and stuff like that.
I think we would do regular maintenance of all of those things so that we wouldn't have to necessarily replace them, but every capital thing, every building, every plant, everything that we build needs to be maintained and needs to have things replaced.
Right. You've already said the maintenance was part of the process. So repair costs, replacement costs, that's additional. That'll be big money items, I'm sure. Correct?
Right, and as a typical capital improvement plan would be 20, 30, 40 years down the road as these things need to be replaced, all the original debt on these projects will be expiring, and that we would typically try to line up replacement and significant refurbishment to come on board as you pay off the original debt.
So done with one debt into another. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This gentleman.
Ian Drake from 70 Field Road. I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to say it because I think everybody's mind is pretty much made up. I'd like to call the vote.
So I'm not quite there. I want to give the gentleman behind you an opportunity, and this young lady here, and then come back to Dan's question, and then if I think we've hit it all, we'll entertain your motion. Everyone, Okay.
Hi, good evening. Tom McNellis, 380 Cooksbrook Road. Just real quickly, I was hoping I could come and say I'm pleased to support this. I am supporting it, but we've all said we're conflicted in many different ways. Hey, I'd rather be at the beach tonight, but isn't that why we're here? Because we want to protect the beach. We want to protect the waters. We want to protect the ponds. And more, we've seen those beaches and ponds closed every now and then because of the nitrogen loads that are going in there. The 165,000 gallons that are going to go through the treatment plant are now going into the ground in our backyards, and you're putting all that pollution right there in your backyards. So this is pretty important. Yeah, I'd rather not pay the extra $1,000 in taxes, but I don't want to pay $30,000 or $40,000 on an IA system and pay another $4,000 every year in maintenance on an IA system. So again, I think this is a good decision. We feel like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I understand that. But I commend the town, the staff, the designers who have put together a really solid plan. The water plane management plan is the best we can do here. If we vote that plan down, we just throw this stuff back to the state. And I'd rather not send this back to the state. I'd rather a local plan be done here. So I guess I should say that I'm happy to be here and support this. And one other thing I want to mention, I don't want to downplay the effects on the abutters and the folks in the neighborhood, but I was at the Orleans treatment plant about a month ago, and it is pristine. There's no odors. It is very quiet. I was amazed because other plants that I've been at have not been anything like that. The older plants that the country has put in over many, many years, and we're kind of late to the game, but perhaps there's a benefit here. We're getting some of the best technology. So I strongly support voting for this. Thank you.
Stacy Richardson, McCoy Road. I just have a couple of questions on phase 2. How many houses will be in that phase?
All right, give me your second question, Stacy, and then we'll get why we get an answer.
I wanted to know the cost of phase 2.
All right, 856 is the answer in phase 2.
856. All right, and how many total in the town?
Total houses?
Yes.
About 5,900.
Okay, so this is a small fraction for phase 1 and phase 2. How much is phase?
It's a small fraction, but since we're treating it as a central treatment plant to such a low level of nitrogen, it limits the amount that you need to do. It's a cost-saving measure. Okay. If you had another solution that did not remove as much nitrogen, you'd have a lot more people that would have to connect, which would increase the cost. So this is the most cost-effective solution. You connect as few as you.
How much will phase 2 cost?
We don't know how much phase 2 will cost. We're planning phase 1.
So when phase 2 happens, is it going to be this plant, or is it going to need? Yes. It's going to be this plant.
This plant.
It's going to be able to. Okay, it's going to be able to do all of this.
This plant's designed to handle phase 1 and phase 2 collection systems. Okay. So phase 2 will be a collection system addition into Southeastham.
Okay. So when we're doing phase 2 and we need to get a loan, are we going to be able to get a no-interest loan, or are we just going to? I mean, if that's the reason we have to move forward so fast now is because we need this low-interest loan, in 10 years or 20 years, don't we think maybe the state's going to make another one available for us? Maybe they could, I mean,
We don't know what the financing looks like. Phase 2 is likely 25 years.
Right, and that's it. We don't know what the future holds. So maybe in 2 years, 3 years, when we decide we do want to do it as a town, there'll probably still be a zero.
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
We know right now that we have a $170 million guarantee at a zero-interest
Yes,
loan
I realize
for a
that, and
treatment
that's-
plant and for Phase 1.
And that's good, but when phase 2 comes. And my last question is when I'm worried about the water quality too, and I went to Herring Pond today, and it is as dirty as I've ever seen it. It's just filled with algae. How is this treatment plant going to help our ponds?
It's a great question.
Hillary?
Well, we know removal of any bit of nutrients aids in our pond's health. And so we also have a pond sampling program where we sample all of the ponds. We just recently held a pond workshop and looked at the status of all of the ponds. And so we do know that we will be coming forward with some pond remediation projects in the near future.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so to be fair, I did a snapshot of who was standing at a mic when the question was called. Town council and I both feel we've gotten a pretty good overview of the speakers. So we are going to honor the request for, well, hold on. We're going to honor the request for the call the question, which will require a 2/3 vote. So the light will go on. You'll have 30 seconds. So yes is to call the question. No, we're not voting on the question. We're calling the question. No is to continue debate. Yeah. So so the light is on. You have 30 seconds to vote. 1 to call the question. 2 to continue debate. It's a 2/3 majority is needed. All right, hold on. All right, hold on. What's not working? Was just one clicker? Yeah. All right. Yeah, I know, I understand that. That's why I'm just trying to make sure that I do get your vote counted. How do we know your clicker's not working? Is it dead? Okay. So you didn't see, all right. So, all right. So is there a clicker person that can help that gentleman?
They're helping already.
All right, they're already helping. All right, hit the button again. Okay. All right. Let's clear the vote, and let's do this one more time. Okay. 1 is to call the question. 2 is to continue debate. It requires 2/3. When the light goes on, you have 30 seconds. All right, we're keeping the green light on for a second. We got clicker police is on it. Okay. All right. Everybody's good? Okay. Going to turn the light off? Okay. Okay. So we have eclipsed a 2/3 majority to call the question. We have 575 in the affirmative, 47 in the negative. So now it's time to vote on the question, Article number 1, and the motion's been made. The light is on. You have 30 seconds to vote. It's 2/3 majority is required. One is yes, 2 is no. Okay, so the results are in. In the affirmative is 537. 96 in the negative. So the 2/3 majority has been received. So our final business is to thank you all for showing up.
I move we
And-
adjourn.
What's that? Vote tomorrow.
Motion to adjourn.
June 24th, tomorrow, Town Hall. And
Second.
final thing is, if everyone's in favor of disbanding the special town meeting, say aye.